just excited to be back and back at it again. It's been a good summer. I think when you go back and you look at the last 7 months, really since we got here in December, it's been hectic, but it's also been really exciting. And I think, I think I've said it over and over and over again, but I think in a lot of ways, just off the field things, I feel like we're probably a little ahead of schedule where I thought we would be, and now we get to find out, on the field, where we are there. And I think that's, there's been so much that's gone up to this point from, strength and conditioning standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, to adding to the roster, to, doing all the things that we do, team building, just trying to get the buy-in from the players at the highest possible level. I feel like we're in a really good spot, and as we've said over and over and over again, the important thing for us is to be in a good spot, the first Friday in September. I think that's the most important thing. And they're here, they're in a good place, and we've got to walk that tightrope between having good, tough, physical, hard-nosed practices, but at the same time making sure we get the best 22 to the game against Colorado. So, training camp's always challenging. There's a lot of things, unexpected things that happen, and again, I'm excited to see how our players can deal with those things. I think that up until this point, it's been rainbows and puppy dogs and fireworks and all that. Now it's the grind. There's going to be disappointment. There's going to be people that have to deal with a little sense of adversity. And, at the end of the day, that's when we're going to really figure out kind of what we're all about, what our team's about. So looking forward to that revealing itself, and it should be an exciting, next 4 weeks. And I do think there is a sense of excitement in the air, and certainly from our players, and I think you can feel it. Just excited to get going.
Coach, it seems like these past 8 months have gone pretty fast. Has it gone pretty fast for you?
Yeah, it's gone so fast. I only thought it was 7 months. It's gone fast. It's been, it has. I mean, it's just, the funny thing about it is there's just so much that needs to be done. I think when you sit down at the very beginning and you look at it and you say, what do we have to do? There's, hundreds and hundreds of things, and you just kind of keep checking those boxes as you go along. But, as I said earlier, I mean, the funny thing about our business is, there's so much attention paid to so many different things, whether it's hiring a staff or whether it's recruiting or, just all the things that go along with that. But at the end of the day, the product on the field is ultimately what matters. And, we're kind of past all the fluff now, and we're on to what I think, is the meat and potatoes of our football program. And so, now we get to start answering the questions that we all have, and get a sense of where we are. But yeah, it's gone fast, and it's been fun. I think we've all really enjoyed being here. I think that I had a sense for what TCU was all about when I was here in 17, and I think it's better than I anticipated. The support's been outstanding from the community, from our administration. And as I said earlier, it's really about the players, and those guys have done an incredible job up to this point doing what we've asked them to do. So it's made the transition easy. I think that the bottom line is when you're around good people, good things happen. And I like our players. I think that, they've grown up, they've matured. It's going to be a process still, but I think to this point they have. And, I like the people that I have an opportunity to work with every day. I really respect them and think they're very good at their job. And when you have that type of situation, it makes coming to work fun. And, when that happens, the time passes.
I was going to ask you, what difference did having that year of experience here make kind of with your transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the TCU's in a bit of a strange situation. I mean, you knew about the success they had here, obviously, when Coach Patterson was here. Unfortunately, some of that stuff was done under the radar. I think at that point, people just didn't really maybe recognize it from a national perspective. I mean, I certainly wasn't aware of it to the extent that I should have been in a lot of ways, just how good the program was. And, really just the appeal of the university in general. And so, because of that, I got over here in 17 and I was just like, wow, this place is it's a great place. Fort Worth's a great town. All this stuff is here that you need to be able to build a great football program. And obviously Coach Patterson had done that. And so, it was a little bit of an eye opener for me, just having been over here. And then, kind of the circumstances worked the way that they did. And, here I am now. And so it's been an interesting journey, needless to say, but I think the thing that we want to do is open the door to as many people as we can. And I think that's a big part of, why we choose to have practices the way we do, and why we choose to recruit the way we do, and our goal is just to get people here. I think the more that people come, whether it's fans, whether it's recruits, whether it's their parents, whether it's supporters that are interested in the football program or other athletic programs, the more they come here, I think the more they're going to be impressed and the more they're going to want to come back. And so I think just within the infrastructure itself, that's the case. And now, we've got to do a good job of putting a good product on the field. And if you do that, then, it continues to rise, and that's what you're looking for.
You've talked a couple times about the process that you're going through about picking a starting quarterback, but is there a deadline in mind for making that decision?
Not really. I think that, I would all like to know as quickly as possible. But it's like anything else. The quarterback stuff gets so much attention, but there's just really, truly going to be a battle for literally every position. And what I mean by that is, and people hear coaches say that and they go, really? But it's really true. At the end of the day, if you're a defensive end and you have 2 or 3 bad practices, and the guy that's younger than you or a backup or whatever the case may be has 2 or 3 really good practices, all of a sudden you're going to be splitting reps with that guy. And it didn't really matter what happened last year or what happened in the past or, what your reputation is or any of that. It's all about production. And so and it's certainly that way at the quarterback position. And so, we're just going to sit down and see, and there's going to be some guys, that are in the quarterback battle that have a bad day and bounce back and have a good day. And you're just looking for all the different factors. There's so much that goes into making that decision. But I think it's really comes down to one thing, and that's, who makes the team better, who gives us the best chance to win. And, and some guys do that in different ways, and I think, the way you measure quarterbacks, it's interesting because, there's so many people that do it differently. I say this all the time, but if you lined up all the starting quarterbacks in the NFL and you had a skills competition, my belief is Tom Brady probably finishes near the bottom. If you ran 40s and vertical jumped and, ran a shuttle and, did all this stuff, he's probably not going to be in the top 25, maybe not even in the top 30. But when the game is played on Sundays, his deal's different. And so you have to just evaluate quarterbacks that same way, and you say, okay, what does Tom Brady do the best? Well, he makes everyone around him better, and that's what we're looking for.
Do you still get excited?
Oh yeah.
For tomorrow?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's still I think what you're excited about is, every college football coach, high school coach, pro coach is starting the season, and everybody, has a plan or has an idea what they think it's going to look like. You know what I mean? I think that you sit down and you go, okay, what does this look like? And very seldom does it work the way you think it's going to. In other words, sometimes it's better than you think, sometimes it's worse than you think. Sometimes, it's ugly, but you figure out ways to get it done. Sometimes it's really pretty, but you figure out ways to not get it done. And so it's just, there's all these kind of factors that go into it. And I think that's why, you always have to, you gotta be careful about what your expectations are. You know what I mean? And I think, for us, the number one thing we always want to do is win a conference championship. That's what everybody does. And you look at it, and this is one thing I think that's unique and different maybe about the Big 12 right now is, I think the team that was picked 8th last year won the league in Baylor. If you go back and you look at major conferences over the last 25 years, you gotta say, how many times has that happened? you know, in Power 5 conferences. My guess is not very often. You know, I don't know who's picked 8th in the SEC this year, but, you know, it's probably been a while since whoever was won it. And so, you know, long story short, you know, there's a lot of parity in the league. You know, this is one of those leagues where I really truly believe, you know, that you have to play well every week. You know, you do, and there's gonna be a very, very small determining factor that's gonna, you know, make a difference between who wins and who loses.
Coach, what's one goal or one thing you hope to see from the team during this first week?
Yeah, I kind of go back to the goal thing. I think, you know, for us, you know, I think anytime what you want, I think from people, not just teams, what you want from individuals is you want that individual to be the best that they can be, the best that they can become. And so, you know, you want that within our football program. In other words, you want all these guys to be really good individuals, to play as good as they're capable of playing, to be as good teammates as they can be. And then you want to see that side of the ball, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, you know, they have that same kind of collective synergy, you know, where the sum is bigger than the parts, you know what I mean? And so that's what you want. You want, you know, you want guys to play really well, to play their capabilities, but then you want the offensive, defensive, special teams to be even better. And then you want the other two to get in line with them, and then you have the best team you can possibly have. And so it's weird, you know, our sport's so unique because there's, you know, we're gonna have 110 players that report, and you know, there's gonna be a lot of little nuances, little things that happen, you know, during the season, and opportunities for guys to get disenfranchised and frustrated and be selfish and create issues, and you know, and the good teams find ways to deal with those things. You know, you have a big collection of people, and it's hard to have 110 completely happy, satisfied people, and you know, how do you deal with all that? And you know, and certainly, most importantly, how do the players in the locker room deal with those type of issues and challenges? And so that ultimately is kind of what at the end of the day, in a lot of ways, determines what kind of success you have. Because we've all seen football teams where they have really good players, but they don't necessarily have good teams. We've all seen really, really good teams that didn't necessarily have great players. And so it's just kind of the combination is we want our guys to play as well as they can individually, which leads to success collectively, which leads to a lot of success as a team.
Coach, how did summer workouts go? And did you get some pretty positive reports from Coach Cause?
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is we're able to beat a lot of those, you know, which is different. We get 2 hours a week to do some football stuff, and you know, I think there were, you know, just observing those things, it was good. You know, I think the guys, you know, we look good physically, we're moving well. You know, we're very, very healthy. We're going to go into fall camp with very few injuries. You know, now we're going to need to be smart about some guys that are coming off of injuries. We're not going to throw them back out there, and you know, and we're going to have to bring some guys along slowly. And that'll be a big part of the decisions that we make every day. You know, and some of the things that we can rely on these days from a technology standpoint really help make those decisions. And so, you know, we GPS our guys. We'll come in and look at reports of who's run, how fast have they run. You know, and it gives you some really interesting numbers and some things that you can look and it's going to help you make some decisions on practice and how often, you know, and then pull in some guys out from time to time to try to prevent them from, you know, doing too much too early. And so, you know, I feel like we're in a really good spot. I think the guys are healthy, and you know, but again, the big thing for us right now is to be the same way September.
Being a coach that's been around for a long time, seen a lot of things, you're talking about the trackers and stuff. How much of a difference, when you look at it, does that go into your decisions? I mean, and how do you actually make sure you're using all of this information?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, you know how it is with anything. I mean, it's, you know.
Analysis by paralysis, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like, you know, they asked for Enron's financial records, and they brought him so much stuff that could fill his room. You know, there was so much stuff nobody could find anything. And so you know how stuff is. I mean, it's like, you got to figure out what's important and what really moves the needle. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges on a day-to-day basis that I think we all have to deal with is, you know, at the end of the day, what's really important. and I think it goes back to some things we've talked about, like in recruiting, you know, what do we have to sell? Let's make sure that, you know, we're always selling those things. And let's make sure that we don't get lost on some kind of wayward, journey where we don't focus on, you know, the things that we have to focus on. And it's the same way in football. I mean, look, we can, you know, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna watch, we're gonna have film, we're gonna have, you know, individual coaches that evaluate guys, you know, lots of different opinions in the room. You know, we're gonna have GPS stuff that's gonna tell us things. We're gonna have strength and conditioning coaches and trainers that give us feedback and information on players and their performance. And then we have to, you know, figure out what ultimately is gonna move the needle and then try to, you know, make the decisions the best we can, again, without making sure you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think that's the deal. There's always a fine line there between too much and not enough. And so, you know, understanding what that looks like can be difficult. You know, and I think every individual is different, every team's different. So you've got to try to process all that stuff. It's really interesting. You know, you look at two receivers and, you know, you look at two guys and they may look the same, but their body may completely respond, or maybe completely different in how they respond to, you know, one guy may be able to play a lot of reps, and one guy might not be able to run that many reps. And so much of it has to do with their body composition, how they're built. You know, all the guys are gonna be in shape. It's not a matter of getting somebody in shape. It's just a matter of, you know, that's why you have guys that run the mile, and that's why you have guys that run the 100. They're just kind of different guys. And so, you know, they may look the same, but in some ways, sometimes those guys can be different. You have to account for that.
Go ahead. Just a couple house.
Yeah.
On the quarterback. Is it a two-man race? Is there any chance that?
I mean, no, I mean, not at all. I mean, it's, you know, I think for, you know, there's a probability that it could be, but, I mean, heck no. You know, I don't care. I mean, it could be part E could be the starter. You know what I mean? I mean, truly, if he comes out and plays the best. I mean, it sounds kind of hokey, but, you know, my first year at Cal, we got a spring. Jared Goff is our 14th quarterback. You know, graduated early, went through spring ball, and he wasn't ready. And he was not even close to being ready. We had some really highly regarded guys that were in front of him. And, you know, as it played out, you know, we got into, at the end of spring, he was third. About a week into practice, he was second. And then, you know, by the time we started the season, he was first. And so, and there wasn't one coach, not one guy in our program that expected that. You know, I remember at Texas Tech one year, we signed Wes Welker after signing day. He went unsigned, nobody wanted him. So we brought him in late. Same thing, if you would have said, you know, who's the last guy in this program that's gonna help us win games this year, everyone in the room would have said Wes Welker. You know, what did he do? I mean, he started the first game and started every game afterwards. And so, stuff like that happens all the time. I mean, it doesn't, you know, doesn't happen every day, but it happens often enough where you're never surprised. But, you know, when you sit down and you look at where the guys were in the spring, and you sit down and you look at the reps, and, you know, you start to look at all that. Two guys kind of stand out, but, you know, as we've said over and over again, I mean, you know, Sam Jackson can do a lot of different things. And so I wouldn't be at all surprised if, you know, he didn't end up in the discussion at some point.
And then, does it matter who takes the first snap tomorrow?
No, I mean, we have had not one conversation about who's gonna take the first snap tomorrow. My guess is, at some point, there'll be a rock, paper, scissors game. It'll determine who takes the first snap tomorrow.
Do you even take into account today for them? Like, you're gonna have both of them talk to us.
Yeah.
Does that come into play, like how they handle themselves? Or
I mean, I think that's part of the puzzle. You know, I do. I think it's part of the puzzle, but you know, I think they're both. You know, they probably wouldn't be both talking to you today if I was nervous about what they're going to say. You know what I mean? And so I think I feel confident in their ability to be able to handle everything that goes along with playing that position. And obviously, Max has already done it. You know, as a starting quarterback around here, and Chandler did it at times last year. So, you know, both of them are mature, both of them are nuanced guys, and they get it.
There's obviously some different pieces with fall camp, with new guys arriving, more transfers.
Yeah.
What do you expect to see out of those guys, and maybe even some of the true freshmen that have got here?
Yeah, I mean, that to me is the big unknown. you know, I think you come out of spring ball and you have a sense of guys can do this and guys can do that, and, you know, there's always movement, you know, where some guy really improves and some other people don't take as big a step, over the summer. But, you know, the true surprise really occurs with the freshmen, you know, and there's gonna be some guys that don't look very good in the strength and conditioning workouts that are really good football players. There's gonna be some that are just the opposite, you know, that don't look great or do look great strength and conditioning and don't go out and they're not ready to perform. You know, I think that guys that play early, if you sat down and you said, okay, what's the most important thing for a guy to get on the field and play early? You know, I think in a lot of ways, it comes down to one thing, and that's just an ability to adjust and adapt. I think that's probably the most important thing, because, you know, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, it's just gonna be a different approach than what those guys are used to, and it's gonna be happening really fast, and, you know, they're gonna feel like that they're drowning in some ways, and you know, and those guys that can say, okay, I can figure this out and steady themselves are the ones that usually have success, and the guys that can never seem to get caught up are the ones that tend to struggle a little bit.
Coach, obviously